Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this week's episode of Fake Accents Unite. I am joined this evening by the never gregarious Britisher.
Good evening.
This week's episode of...
Well, this worked.
Is anyone there?
I don't know what happened there.
You went silent.
I went silent. Oh,
yes.
For goodness sake. Did I introduce the Britisher?
You did, and then I said good evening, and then
absolute silence.
Yes,
marvelous. Okay, well we're back now. Also joined by the pretzel man himself, Tailed Feature. Good evening.
Fesker ma.
Yes, as I was just saying before we came on live, the problem with the French is that they don't have a word for patisserie.
Nor a word for innuendo.
Or for entendre.
Yeah.
It's just what we should stop. We should stop while we're ahead.
Yeah, we're
reminiscing
in George W. Bushisms, and the audience don't even know about it. Yes.
Bit of a long week. If anyone is familiar in the chat with a YouTuber called The Killian Experience, and the style of video that he produces, I'm about halfway through a script, which is going to hopefully be in that sort of style, but regarding the cabinet ministers' discussions for Brexit, which sounds dreadfully boring. Now I'm saying it out loud, but we will persevere in the hopes that it is some sort of comedic gem.
Does the line ever feature "kill them all"?
I can't say I've worked that in there, but I could. Any particular reason other than you want to kill them all?
I was just wondering, you were sort of saying, well, it sounds very dry and very technical and whatever. And I just sort of thought if you kind of have one or two sort of momentous highlights of completely inappropriate lines in there.
I don't know. I could read some. No, I'm not going to read it. I'll keep it all a surprise. But it's just basically what my week has been in between visiting the hospital. I do just have to give a quick update on the stroke fund because it is coming to a close now. So first of all, I'd like to thank everyone who donated. We raised, I think, after fees, it was something around the region of £2,000, which has certainly alleviated both my mother's, and one would hope my father's mind when it comes to some of the financial worries we've been dealing with. I'm going to leave it open to the end of the month, and then I'll close it. So if anyone gets payday come along and fancies donating to that, just to help out, that would be awesome. But again, just to highlight, thank you very much to all 101 people who have donated to that cause. Very much appreciated. Right. News this week has been relatively dry, I would say. Most of the stuff has surrounded Boris Johnson and his fracas, shall we say?
Oh, sorry, you mean the coward Boris Johnson?
Do expand, Britisher. Do expand.
Well, because Jeremy Hunt has basically called out Boris Johnson to stop being such a coward and to meet him on the field of battle. That is some television debate, which, of course, Boris Johnson isn't interested in because he's that far in the lead. Why would he want any more debates with the
losing party?
With the chap whose name Victoria Derbyshire can't even pronounce.
Nor James Naughty.
What happened with James Naughty?
Oh, that was the classic. It was on Radio 4, and he says, we're talking next to Jeremy Hunt, Culture Secretary, as he was then, and then he just spends the next 4 minutes stifling laughter. It's beautiful.
Did they actually talk to him? Because
I can't remember.
Imagine if they actually had him scheduled to come on, I'd just be like, "Fuck you! I'm not coming on anymore. Bye."
Yeah, Jeremy Hunt, also known as Jeremy Cunt, the Culture Secretary. Yes.
Yes, indeed.
Yes. I was expecting like more variety. It's like, that's a very one-note insult, right? Whereas Jeremy Shunt or Jeremy Tunt. Could have gone anywhere really with that. Very blunt, yes. Although that would James Blunt would sue for defamation, I imagine, at that point. So
anyone would want to share a surname with that guy, anyway. I
mean, Jeremy Runt of the litter.
Is this where you reveal, Tailed, that your surname is Blunt?
Oh yeah, Doc. Yeah, if he was Jeremy Blunt, you know, at least he would get the support of the stoners.
Jeremy, take a punt on me, you know that sort of thing. He could have worked it into a whole advertising campaign. It's
I think if his advertising campaign was, 420, blaze it, Jeremy Blunt. I
think when it comes to advertising campaign, his entire strategy seems to consist of "I am not Boris Johnson."
Yes, and did you know that 20 years ago I once owned a business? That was the entirety of his statement from the debate that I got. Anyway, people are asking if we're not doing Boris. We're talking about Boris right now. We just kind of sidelined onto Jeremy Hunt, who is obviously making noises himself. But the weird, it's such a weird situation. Because the recording, I don't know if either of you have listened to the recording.
No, is it out?
Not as far as I'm aware, but there have been transcripts. Apparently, she was screaming, "Get off me!" Right? So that's been the big thing. And then you've had this weird thing where kind of, particularly the American kind of conservative right, have been basically saying, it's just my favorite one was from Julia Hartley Brewer, actually, who said something along the lines of, "This is just what married life is like." It's just like, what kind of married life?
The one thing that I picked up on was I don't know if it was the BBC or if it was the Guardian who were reporting, because initially it was the Guardian that broke it. Surprise, surprise. And apparently he had spilt red wine on the sofa, and the girlfriend was not happy about that. And therefore she was haranguing him, telling him that he was spoilt. He doesn't know the value of things, which of course immediately played into the narrative of, posh Tory boy, born with silver spoon in mouth, doesn't know the true value of things, doesn't look after things. Let's run with that, if you know what I mean. But yes, I mean, it seems the whole thing just seems completely and utterly poisonous. Imagine just for a moment what would need to be going on that you would feel the need to call the police.
Well, no. I mean, if I'd heard my neighbours and woman in the house shouting, "Get off me," I'd have called the police. Simply because, you have absolutely no idea what's going on there.
That highly depends, does it not, at which stage of the argument that image emerges.
Well, so obviously, I'm going off is what the
impression I was getting. The impression I was getting from what I've read, and I've not read a transcript. I've just kind of, I've sort of got snippets of it, but in a sequence, if you know what I mean. So, if you hear her crying, "Get off me," and then everything suddenly goes deadly silent next door.
Well, the thing that came to mind for me regards those two things is the tone of her voice is going to be really important there, because it could be, it depends whether or not it's clear who is shouting at who and for what reason in general, because it's like, if he spilled, I believe it was something along the lines of, she spilled the wine on the sofa, he got in a huff with her, then she shouted at him about something else, is the way I've, unless I've completely misinterpreted something I've read, that's the general gist. And so it being the idea that he's got in a huff, she's had a long day, suddenly she goes absolutely off on one at him. He then tries to calm her down. She's having none of it. "Get off me," that sort of thing. As opposed to him being an angry, rampant misogynist who is standing there with getting the poker from the fire, grabs her by the arm, "Get off me." That's a bit different, isn't it?
Yes, but "get off me" is not usually followed one or two sentences later by him shouting, "Get off my laptop."
Yes, there is also that. I also think that it's not like the whole thing. I wouldn't call the police and then record that conversation and then sell that recording to the Guardian. That's also something I wouldn't do.
You see, the thing I touched upon in the week that was was the fact that.
Oh, are you eating something still, Patricia?
Yes, I'm still. I'm still
would you like
trying
to-
to finish this piece of patisserie. Yes.
Yes. What's on the patisserie? How did you describe it to me before we came online?
It's some kind of nut-filled trellis or something like that.
Nut-filled trellis.
Lattice, not trellis. What am I?
Oh,
what am I talking about? Yeah.
I thought we're in the gardening now, right?
Yeah, why not?
The
We've
British,
slipped into
the
gardener's world there for a
the
moment.
British are eating his nut-filled trellis, ladies and gentlemen.
Here we are. Yeah.
You're assuming it's his own nut, to be fair.
Yes,
Well, there is that. I'm
I
very
don't know what
flexible.
I don't know what would disturb me more, to be honest.
No, but when it came to that whole thing, apparently the Guardian contacted the police, and the police about the nut-filled trellis. Yeah.
Sorry, British. It's just that Binary Surf has picked up that you've picked something that's usually attached to a fence. You don't do yourself any
thanks for that.
favours, do you?
Yes. So, in order to try to get back to the Boris thing,
Yeah, of course.
Whatever.
the Guardian got in touch with the police, and the police, obviously regarding this as a private matter, didn't really want to respond.
Yeah.
So apparently the police only then eventually responded once the Guardian presented the call reference number, but also the sort of police serial numbers of the police cars that attended the actual event. So this is what I mean. The neighbours seem to have gone to considerable length. I mean, okay, you might be given a reference number when you call the police and you might write that down. Fine. But how did the Guardian come by the number of the police vehicles?
Yes, it is quite an impressive haul of information, isn't it?
Yes, it's just, and then immediately, whom do you call? I mean, do you call the Daily Mail? Do you call the Times? Do you call the Sun? No, you call the Guardian.
Oh yes, the bastion of free expression.
Yeah, you call the newspaper at which Owen Jones works, if you know what I mean.
Of course, I don't know.
It's I don't think
it's
he
the
works
natural.
for them,
Do
but
you
he's
not
a
have
columnist,
do you not have Owen Jones's hotline on speed dial on your
Well,
phone?
don't we all? Yes.
60% of the nation.
But just in order to give that part of the audience that might not quite clock, what we're getting at. That's what I mean. That basically, it does seem as if these are kind of politically hostile neighbours, and therefore, I think one has to treat everything that is coming to the fore here with a large pinch of salt.
We have been live for less than 15 minutes. We are now demonetized. Marvelous. I don't even know what it is. Your lattice trellis
must be my
based
trellis.
jokes.
Yes, must
Britishers. I've been demonetized by Britishers trellis. I should
not
really
trellis attached to a fence.
I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to nut live on stream.
Yes, I think we should rename the stream, to be honest, to demonetized accents unite. But bit of a mouthful.
On Twitter, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, I did. I put that as the advertisement for the evening.
When you're talking about demonetization,
oh no,
how much of your content actually nowadays still is monetized?
No,
I don't know. Nothing for the last 4 weeks. So there you go.
Yeah. So I mean, I think we can therefore conclude we're all effectively demonetized. So one hasn't officially demonetized our channels, but given that
yes, they have.
Sorry. Yes, of course.
just salt in the wound, Britisher.
Well, yes, but I mean,
I'm eating pretzels, but there's enough salt on them.
What I'm trying to kind of say is that we're effectively in the same camp as demonetized channels.
Well,
all
these super chats rolling in are reassuring me of that.
Yeah, you're not that demonetized.
And speaking of which, I'm going to read some of them.
Can I ask a question there? In that case, to Tailed Feature, I mean, can you get super chats?
No. Everything will be removed.
Oh, well, yeah, that surprises me. I would have assumed that just basically meant they cut you off from advertisers.
No, he doesn't get the yellow symbol. He gets no symbol. That's it.
Oh, well, in that case, we can exclude not so obvious. That.
Well, that's why I was
that
saying to you-
capitalist
so-
swine who is raking it in. And
So-
that's
so-
the two of
saying you
us.
should-
We're
you should-
effectively the demonetized channels
So-
who
so-
don't get super chats.
So,
Yeah,
so,
but you don't do live streams or premieres, which is why I was saying you should premiere your videos so you can get some super chats.
for goodness sake, gentlemen, St. Scowen says,
Oh, you're here.
you're late.
Hello.
Tea has been shown to be a cure for a diverse amount of ailments such as tardiness, stress, degeneracy, French people, and Viking raids. Drink more tea.
Yes, it's kind of strange that any mention of tea, which this subject came up on Twitter, and you walk away from your mobile phone, you come back to it, and you're informed that you've got something like 50 replies. I don't know what it is about people talking about tea, but folks get quite militant about it.
We love tea. I mean, the most popular streams on my channel are entirely tea related.
Well, there is that, yes, but I'm talking about people getting sort of, quite militant about it, and of course, all of them being wrong. That makes it even worse.
I am being berated from the chat by the academic agent who is currently in the bath about poor stream discipline because I'm not keeping you in order well enough. So
poor stream discipline. Yes, yeah. This is the person who is entirely interested in economics and the right doesn't exist, and yet everything that seems to be coming from him these days is shifting ever more further to the right in every single way. So now we're getting discipline. What we need, what the young people today need, is discipline. So any moment now, it's going to switch into German and turn into Zucht und Ordnung.
Apparently
oh my god! Okay, British, like calm down. Like there's no need.
He's maybe in Bath, but he's not in the bath.
Yes, he's more than likely right now experiencing that Bertie Wooster phenomenon of sitting in a warm bath but feeling a chill.
Makuta Pterodact says, tailed feature. Your new catchphrase should be Fesca Moo.
No.
Is Fesca Ma just good evening?
Yes. Or
Yeah.
good afternoon.
Yeah.
Well, Fesca Ma, I believe, is Bulgarian, whereas
Yes,
Fesca Moo is
I'll-
Romanian. Yes.
Yeah, just in
Yes.
case we hadn't established that about a year ago. Yes, that is Bulgarian.
Right. And then I'm going to read. I'm not forgetting you, JS, but I'm going to read. Let me see. No. So Christian Werty wants us to explain what a trellis is.
I already did, but
Which is it is a typically wooden structure, an interlaced kind of what's the word, like a net of wood.
Don't look at me. I think you can eat them.
Which obviously, which just crunching the splinters between your teeth, which vine like plants grow up basically, and flowers, rhododendron, that sort of thing.
Britisher likes chewing on wood.
JS says that Jess Phillips has associated Boris with domestic abuse. Yes, this is the thing as well, is that, of course, you've got the right, who some of whom are defending it too vigorously, relatively rational people in the middle, and then the left who are going absolutely mental about him being the physical embodiment of hatred of women and the beating of mothers, and that sort of thing. So it's a very strange state of affairs. It doesn't surprise me in the slightest that Jess Phillips did this. I like it. And there's this huge part of me that just hates it so much that I'm just like, if you insult someone and you can't back it up immediately, and you can't therefore prove X, Y, and Z, then you should just be instantly fired. You should just be let go. You should just be out the government and maybe out the country, or drown you in the channel. But that's just me being morally puritanical once again. Matthew,
well, it would be nice if accusing someone without any grounds of domestic abuse would be treated in the same way of being found to be
the only reason
somebody who commits domestic abuse.
The only reason they're getting away with it is it's not in a court of law. It's but it is interesting that basically she can levy a defamatory comment at him without any repercussions. When nothing has been proven, nothing has even been charged. Like, the two of them have come together and gone, "We just had a spat," right? And that's what they said, and they're stronger than ever. Now part of that could be Clinton-esque, like It doesn't even matter that he had an affair. We're still strong together. But I mean, really, like, you've got to take them at their word for that. And she's not interested in pressing charges or whatever. So no crime has taken place. No one felt that they were harmed enough to actually file a court case. Do you know what I mean?
Are you sure that Clinton-esque is the right word to choose if the eventual conclusion is that no crime has taken place?
No, that's not what I mean. I mean the Clinton-esque, the face of something being like no, like you at the beginning of the statement.
I'm just being facetious.
Of course you are. You are the
Yes.
facetious man, the most facetious man in Britain,
Facetious
who
trailer.
was the most British facetious
There
man
are
who is
people
lives
out
in
there
Britain.
right now trying to rhyme facetious with trellis.
I just tried it already.
The most British facetious British man who was raised not in Britain. There we go.
There is that.
So
yes.
The Matthew Hatch says Boris Johnson doing his Harry Enfield, Miles Cholmondeley Warner impression. Cholmondeley Warner impression
Warner.
with said poker. Women, know your place.
Women, know your limits.
Yeah, that was so good. I don't know anything about cows, but I do love kittens. It's just like, oh,
True.
basically don't.
I loved the representation of Britain on that globe. You know, whenever he did those black and white little skits,
Yeah,
you always had the opening, where you just see the globe turning. And then as it gets to the Atlantic, sort of half the Atlantic is filled by the British Isles because they're just so massive.
Yeah, it seems a bit right.
that sounds about right. Yeah. Apart from, you will be happy to know, Tailed Feature, that today the academic agent called for the ejection of Scotland forcibly from the Union for being, and I think I'm paraphrasing here, but it may as well be a direct quote, as spineless, freeloading socialist scum.
And
I think that was his thing.
In that case,
Fuck you, academic agent. You Welsh
I would suggest we reformulate by proposing, in that case, the ejection of the academics for all being spineless, left-wing, freeloading scum.
Well, despite me being all those things, at least I'm not Welsh.
Or
Still
worse,
better than being Welsh.
it could be worse. You could be half Welsh.
Ooh.
And that's worse because that means that at some point your ancestors chose to come to Wales.
Or not in Wales.
Or on the other hand, one of the ancestors could have chosen to leave Wales.
Rubbish. The academic agent says, more facetious than a Fox-appointed professor of facetiousness at Oxford University.
Yeah.
That sounds like me, yes.
And Matthew Hatch says, remember the support that Layla Moran got for hitting her husband compared to the attacks on Boris for what the police have reported as nothing happening. I think that bears thinking about, certainly. Yes. Do either of you remember this incident in question?
I'm struggling here. This doesn't ring a bell at all.
No, I'm still thinking of reminded of the George Bush pretzel incident. As I eat pretzels.
Asking in the glow of getting your revenge, your trellis-related revenge after my having put up a clip on Twitter.
Your unabashed cheek.
So for those who don't know, Layla Moran is a Lib Dem MP, and she basically wanted to take on the leadership, and she went to the Lib Dem party conference in 2013 and slapped her boyfriend in the face. And they were both arrested. Interesting that they were both arrested.
Yeah, why did he get arrested?
They were arrested. Let me see. He was arrested for breaching the peace, and she for assault. But they dropped the charges. Interestingly, but they were told, the BBC were told that they're not going to tell them why they dropped the charges either. So no case was brought by the state, certainly, and he clearly didn't want to take it any further. So that was that, and it was a personal issue, and we hope that their privacy is respected.
Yes, yeah, but it's interesting, isn't it, what these days constitutes assault? because we've had Boris Johnson having been told to get off her. That now is assault. And also we had Mark Field escorting a Greenpeace activist out of the Mansion House dinner, which was also deemed assault.
Yes. What is everyone's opinion on the Mark Fields issue?
I think he should be applauded. I think he acted commendably.
And Barbarian from the North?
Oh. I don't know. I mean, I think, yeah, he did the right thing. I mean, he maybe did it slightly more heavy-handedly than I perhaps would have, but he got the job done. No harm done.
I mean, to be perfectly honest, I think of it in terms of he may as well have committed a citizen's arrest. Loads of people have been defending the Mark Fields thing by going, oh, you know, she was just this poor defenseless woman. And she was carrying a handbag, and I mean, really, what could she possibly have done? And then you remember the kind of general atmosphere of certain things being poured on certain people, and a certain joke made by Joe Brand, and you don't need any real physical strength to lift a cup of acid, do you?
Well, I mean, you know, what I would say there is, so the people around, say, the President of the United States, they are only there to block, you know, women who look as though they could handle themselves, or men, and anybody who looks like her is just given a free pass to walk right up to him. You know, I just don't think that's the way it works. So at that particular dinner, you had the Chancellor of the Exchequer, and nobody is supposed to get near him.
No,
what you're saying is she's got female privilege, and she was just allowed to swan it.
I see here, he took no action that a member of security would not have taken, and just as with about the same level of force. Matthew Hatch puts an alternate headline in chat, which says, Mark Field, at great personal risk to himself, removed a protester making a beeline for the speaker as his security was dealing with 40-odd protesters causing mayhem outside. So, you know, if you think about that, under which I noticed the academic agent has put, he would have been justified if he'd shot her in the face. So,
keeping it light.
You know, there's proportional response. Certainly.
And you're a wet centrist if you disagree.
Yes, that's just academic agent thinking that she might in fact have been Ben Shapiro dressed as a woman.
Obviously, because in drag, Ben Jemima Shapiro. But the and jury rigging points out as well that this comes the same week as David Lammy said that he would pour anything he could get his hands on white supremacists in his own opinion. I know he was responding because he said that he poured scorn.
Precisely, yes.
Yes.
So I saw that line too, but then when I saw what it was responding to, yes, I think we'll have to take a step back and say, look, I think we'll even find in favour of Mr. Lammy.
I don't think it obviously brings him down in my estimation even more. But it's like this is the same person who said that the the ERG are basically the equivalent of the British Klan, and you know, with their term Grand Wizard, which was not a term which they coined themselves, and was not a term which anyone can tie down to anyone in particular saying, maybe complete fabrication. And and he was like, I think I'm not going far enough in what I'm calling them. And it was just like, oh, for goodness sake.
Well, no, I mean, we all know he's a holier than thou.
You
have to still actually look at it as
I know,
Richard,
but you wonder, if you look at this particular thing, you wonder whether or not his progression down the derangement like beeline has gone from I'm going to call them all Nazis to I would pour anything on them to now we're going to see Lammy outside Parliament shooting things up, you know.
Well, I think when it comes to Lammy's derangement, the one thing to look forward to, and I think in that case, just for that alone, it would be worth seeing Boris Johnson become Prime Minister. Because Boris Johnson Prime Minister and David Lammy with a mobile phone on Twitter, that's going to be a fantastic combination.
I think that the point that everyone's missing is that David Lammy would even pour tea over someone, which is the biggest disgrace here, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Or British nut, he'd pour that.
I mean, who wouldn't? You
You
know,
know, I'm almost unable to speak at the idea of someone pouring tea over someone else.
Exactly.
let me see. AA saying Ben Shapiro is worse than David Lammy. Okay. Of course, you know, it's almost like he's here with us in the room, isn't it? Matthew, are you okay, Britisher? I think we've broken him again. Seems to be happening with more and more frequency these days.
Oh, for heaven's sake!
You've actually
Yes,
broken
yes,
the
the
Britisher.
moment that someone is not absolutely ideologically
The
pure, as far as that's, then he's just worse than
The Britisher has consumed a trellis full of nut and been driven insane by the academic agent.
Well, you've heard of broken Britain. Now we've got broken Britisher.
Hey, that's good. Sitzgoen says, to be fair, people do need more discipline, but the best discipline is got by not being babysat by helicopter parents and nanny states. Yeah.
Helicopter parents. I like that phrase.
But Sutzgoen is one of these people who is basically always advocating on behalf of the Vikings, isn't he?
Yeah, he wants to come down and raid us on the regular.
They're not really known for their discipline, are they?
I mean, they were very disciplined, especially their warrior maidens. As we all know, they were 50-50.
The shield maidens,
the shield
basically,
maidens.
yes, always fought in the front line, yes.
Yes, they were 50-50 represented in Viking longships. Tim Cornish says the God, Emperor, and Bojo should share their respective strains of derangement syndrome. What I find interesting as well is the comparison between this situation, where it looks like we're going to have Boris Johnson, looks almost foregone at this point, and Donald Trump on either side of the pond, and compare it to what I considered at the time to be one of the worst matchups in history, which was Tony Blair on our side and George W. Bush on the other, a man well known for his, shall we call it verbal fortitude?
Pretzel fortitude.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
vulnerability to pretzels. Pretzels were his kryptonite. Yes.
And it was before my time, George Bush being elected. I mean, really. I mean,
you didn't miss much.
I was too young. But I'm curious what the set of events were that led to his election, because it's clear that the man is an idiot. So I do not know necessarily, but people call Trump a buffoon and an idiot and the great orange ape in the sky, effectively at this point. And but you wonder what it was that that George campaigned on that got him into the office as well, and why the Americans seem to have a propensity for it.
Well, I mean, first, it came as a reaction to the Clintons.
So every single time the Clintons go up, we get that kind of person. Like, as much as I think Trump's done some good stuff and so on before, that he's nowhere near as needing as demonized as the media makes him out to be. He's not what I would call the ideal figure for leadership. So, in the same way, it's like whenever the Clintons get involved in politics, they are so awful that people would rather take Donald Trump or George W. Bush.
Well, as I say, it's a kind of a sort of a reaction to it. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's just a reaction to that person in particular, or kind of the great, the greater picture that government represented, including, of course, Monica Lewinsky and all that.
Yeah. And
at the same time, what Bush very successfully crafted was the kind of a coalition on the right, which sadly involved the Christian right, which then became very dominant. So yeah, it wasn't the healthiest of time. Let's put it like that.
Yes. I see. It's a curiosity for me, because I wonder whether or not, shall we call it like the derangement from the left was the same surrounding Bush's inauguration as opposed to Trump's. But
I just think that you always need to kind of look at what went before, and it doesn't need to be sort of the immediacy. I think we are, for example, here in Britain, still reacting towards Blairism to a certain extent.
Well,
So that
obviously,
you had-
he fundamentally changed the country.
Yeah. So you had Blair come in, then you had Cameron, who basically became the Conservative Blair, and to what extent have we actually still seen? Have we yet to see a divorce on the Conservative side from that? So the Labour Party is seeking to divorce itself by going full Jeremy Corbyn and Momentum and whatever. Whereas here on the Conservative, so on the Conservative side, what's happening there? So now Boris Johnson and the rise of figures like what's he called? AA's favourite, skinny guy. I've gone completely blank. Jacob Rees-Mogg.
So, like, I didn't think that he was particularly fond of JRM, but
folks like that seem to now be coming to the fore, and that seems to be a bit of a reaction, a move away from Call Me Dave on a sleigh pulled by hounds somewhere in Norway or whatever.
It's like, oh, all right, Dave, why are you fucking up the country? It's I don't know. Let me see. Mr. Pileri says suitable for audiences, which for anyone who doesn't know is a play on suitable for advertisers, which is the name of AA's new show. And Tim Cornish says, ho ho, hey hey, no more chat sniping from AA. So yes, we will ignore him from now on, and he can direct message me if he wants to come on and make his case, or he can super chat. I'm more than happy to read him out if he super chats. The other big thing that I've been looking at.
If you now want a reaction from him, what you need to do is publicly declare that, as far as you're concerned, Ben Shapiro has never done anything wrong.
Yes,
and then he'll be kind of forced to put in the super chat in order to try and counter that.
Well, all I'll say is that, unfortunately, as the academic notes, Ben Shapiro's facts don't care about his feelings.
Well put. Well put.
The other thing that, like, the bigger thing that I like, because Boris Johnson's fracas, like, I mean, it's pure clickbaity nonsense, right? It's tabloid journalism to me. It's like, it's a private thing. Like, I can't remember which show he went on, but they tried to ask him questions about this domestic which had happened, effectively, a little bit of a spat. And it's just like, do you ask everyone else that? It's like, how are your relationships with your wives, etc.? Shall we just, if you declare yourself as wanting to be a member, a leadership candidate, should we just bug your home from now on, and then every little step that you have will be completely analyzed to death, to the point where you have no privacy, you have none at all? I can understand why it, like, especially when the police have said nothing. It's like, he should be able to say, we had a bit of a fight, but things are fine now, and there's no charges, there's no crime, that's all fine, and then move on. It drives me mad because it distracts from what I'm interested in, which is, of course, how are they going to run the country? Any of them, as opposed to one side going, well, at least I don't beat my wife, and the other one going, I'm not a wife beater. It gets in the way. Aren't you glad that you don't have to deal with all this nonsense up in Scotland, Tailed?
Well, yeah, we don't have any Tories up here, really.
Yeah, you called them all.
We've got plenty of domestic abuse, though.
Oh, of course.
I think it was pretty much at the end of the Major government that you lost all your Tories, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, they made some headway because Labour died after the independence referendum. They are gone, pretty much.
So yeah, I mean, the question is almost, where is organised opposition towards the SNP actually supposed to come from?
Exactly, because the Conservatives up here are massive SJWs as well.
Yeah,
you're kind of fucked, aren't you?
Yeah.
I apologize to my audience. This is below the par of my usual commentary.
Well, then again, I mean, there is always the possibility of creating the Dankiller Party.
You mean the Third Reich?
Which perhaps appropriately would be abbreviated to DP.
It reminds me of a South Park episode about the rise of Cthulhu, but let's not get into that. I've just been told that I've been sent some money via Streamlabs, so bear with me.
The academic agent just said eject Scotland.
Well, of course he does, but we're not listening to him, so it's as simple as that.
Oh right, yeah, forgot about that.
Whilst I go through this, I have been watching a documentary today, which is called by Project Veritas. Do you know much about Project Veritas, Britisher?
Yes, I mean, I can't say I know much, but I know who they are. I know what they get up to. Yes.
So they've had a Google insider come to them today. It was only released, I believe, this afternoon, and it was basically a where's it gone? Here we go. Insider blows whistle and exec reveals Google's plan to prevent a Trump situation in 2020. And kind of similar to Tommy Robinson's Panodrama, I guess. If you've seen that as well, they got a Google exec slightly pissed on a work lunch or something, and got them to explain what they were doing. And the main woman who they got was Google's head of responsible innovation, and I'm trying to remember her name, Jenny something. Let me see. Jenny. I cannot find it because Google just dissolves that search. But let me see. And I have to mention, I've got your super chat, Harry. I'll mention that later. Basically, this woman has this idea that she says we want to prioritize fairness, but they've redefined fairness. So they have this thing called machine learning fairness, or ML fairness, which is that if you search for something like I don't know, like a white family or something like that, if the results produce overwhelmingly pictures of white families, then that's not fair on marginalized groups, and you have to provide photos of different ethnic minorities. And you can test this yourself just by going on Google and putting it in an image search. It's quite amusing, actually, if it wasn't quite so scary. But at the same time, they've changed things so that they said, oh, and we're not interested in majority groups. So if it marginalizes a majority group, we don't care. And their plan is that they are going to, one of their leaked documents literally says program users, as in people, brackets like us, at the end of it. It's all worth a watch, I think, if you've seen this. Have you heard about this at all? Or am I talking into thin air?
I can't say that I've heard about this particular story. While you were talking, I tried to Google it, and funnily enough, Project Veritas doesn't seem to be around at the moment.
They have. I will put one of my mods has put a link to the video in the.
Their website seems to be down.
Yes. I see. Yeah. They've been hit like immediately after producing this thing. They did another one recently as well, which was looking at another large social media company, I think, but I can't remember which one that is. So they've had two of those. Fairness is defined as equality of outcome, basically, to them. They want equitable results to avoid a Trump situation.
That's going to be difficult at a presidential election, isn't it?
Yes, obviously. But they were talking about how basically they want to that no one was producing an equitable level of fairness that they desired, but we figured as a big company we should do that so that we can avoid a Trump situation in 2020. That was
Trump
their whole
situation,
thing.
just basically meaning we don't want him to win again.
Yeah, basically, to the point where they directly blacklisted PragerU who are inconsistent, but they've blacklisted them because they're conservative, and Dave Rubin in particular have been.
Yeah, he gets an enormous amount of hate. I've noticed that. There is
It's
really
because he used to be one of them.
towards Dave Rubin.
They don't like betrayal, and of course he
Well,
used to be a gay socialist.
I think there are two things to that. I think, yes, the fact that that he is seen as having been one of them, I think, is one side to it. But I think the other side is that, most people who do any kind of content or whatever are folks who basically report from their living room or whatever. Whereas Dave Rubin, he clearly is a professional media person.
Oh yes, they've also they blacklisted Tim Pool as well.
Dear God, yeah.
He's too far right for them all, clearly.
Well, of course, yes. Yeah.
But I think it's also more like, in the same way that AA talks about Ben Shapiro being a net negative, I imagine they think that that Tim Pool's more of a net negative than any of the hard right, in their own estimation, sources, because he's more balanced, he's professional, and so they're like, he's too far right for us, but he's just far left enough to be tolerable to most people. So he'll drive up traffic, and then he'll convert them. He'll convert them into Nazis and white supremacists.
It's that thing that I think they quite like to have certain figures and personalities on the right that they can sort of point to as bogeymen. That's why I think some characters kind of seem to always survive, if you know what I mean. But at the same time, I think they're really terrified of the Rubins, of the Tim Pools, simply because they are all professional, and that is exactly not the image they want to create. I mean, we've heard the endless insults. Oh, these are all folks who live in their mother's basement and things like that. That's
not people with professional studios.
They don't want it to be professional journalists and sort of interview hosts. I mean, I think particularly who is it who seems to be I mean, Dave Rubin is a prodigy, isn't it, of what's the guy who was on CNN for years?
I don't know.
Larry King. He's had Larry King on once or twice.
Okay.
And Larry King is a household name.
Yeah.
And to have someone who has sort of connections to kind of news interview royalty puts Dave Rubin in a completely different sort of category than the rest of us on YouTube, if you know what I mean. And I think that is where a lot of that hatred comes from. That you're a professional, you should be on television, you should be with us. Even if you're with Fox News, you're at least still part of the sort of established sort of hierarchy of media. Whereas with Rubin going completely independent and doing his thing on the internet, and then having the audacity to interview people about whom they are all saying, oh, these are right-wing extremists and whatever, and allowing these people to just basically talk and present themselves to the public so that the public can actually see that these are actually human beings, perhaps with the exception of Candace Owens. Then you sort of think, well, they are seeing him as an enabler. I think that's the way to put it.
I see. I see what you're getting at. But I mean, Google in particular has decided that it is actually going to shape the narrative. The interesting thing from this particular report was, because it came with a whole load of leaked documents, is that it seems that it may contravene Article 230 of some American Communications Act, basically, which is about the difference between publishers and platforms.
Yes, I'm not sure about that. I mentioned this in the week that was because a senator has just basically proposed an amendment to that very sort of article. And that would be precisely sort of trying to force the platforms to make a decision. Look, what are you? Are you a platform or are you a publisher? And it was actually in The Verge that they had an interview with a professor who, by the looks of it, isn't some kind of raging leftist, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
Who was kind of trying to explain, it seems to be based on a misconception of where that particular article came from. Now, I've since had people shout at me in my comment section saying, "Oh, you're wrong, you don't understand anything." But interestingly, I also got a tweet by someone saying, "I'm an attorney at law and you're actually correct in that interpretation." So it appears that you kind of have to look at the origin of where it comes from. So you had a situation whereby some companies were moderating and some other companies were not moderating their content.
Okay. Yeah.
And those companies that were moderating, they were basically being held liable in court.
Yes, because they were
they had said we are moderating.
They were effectively editing. Yeah.
Those who were not, they basically they got away scot-free. So what the government seems to have done is introduced this article, which effectively gives them immunity. So it acknowledges, look, you are moderating, but we understand you will not be able to catch 100%. So
Except
for the stuff that slips by you, you will effectively be given a pass.
It depends, because the Google one literally has a private flowchart which says editorial board now. And stuff like that, and all this stuff which was never meant to be circulated. And the role of a search engine, I suppose, as opposed to a social media platform even, is an interesting distinction.
Yes. I think that's very true. The difference between a search engine and because then when you come into being by far the biggest search engine on earth, I mean by a vast margin, you are suddenly able to steer people in no end of directions. Yes.
What I find interesting from the hidden camera footage from this particular sort of mini doc, if you want to call it that, is the Google executive saying that they get summons from the US court system, but they say they don't really care about them and they don't turn up because they consider themselves to be above the US court system. And secondly, they've been threatened with being broken up, as a monopoly in effect over this whole thing. But they're not that bothered over that because, as I say, people have tried it on with them before and they failed. But they said, but we have absolutely no intention of changing what we're doing, and we have no intention of being broken up either, because then you'd have a number of smaller companies, and smaller companies don't have the resources to prevent the next Trump situation like we do. And she was talking at the time about Elizabeth Warren, who said maybe it's time to prevent to break up Google.
You mean Elizabeth Pocahontas Warren?
Yes, Elizabeth. I'm definitely Cherokee Warren.
Yeah, let's use her full name. Yes.
And then they said that apparently these documents show that Google violates not only the letter of the law but the spirit of it as well on Section 230. So we'll have to see what comes of it. I suspect nothing. And if there does happen to be something, I imagine it'll come too late, because when you get an amount of information like this and all the legal analysis and everything that needs to go into it, it wouldn't surprise me if it was the kind of court case that spanned, a decade, let alone anything, knowing the speed.
Particularly because they would have the ability to drag it out. Yes.
Yeah.
So obviously they would be thinking in terms of, if we can, survive into the next administration, then there might be a completely different wind blowing. So the longer we stretch it out, the better it could possibly be for us.
Yes, especially as it's all going to be finicky, and definitely based off of, I guess, the semantics at the end of the day. And it's like, oh, we didn't understand this, or you're misinterpreting that, or no, we're not.
Well, particularly because also you might be looking at, talking about algorithms. So does the algorithm favor this over that?
Well, they have. This is the thing. So their idea, ML fairness, is they develop the algorithm. They run the algorithm for a short period of time, and then they manually edit the algorithm to favor things. And the new machine learning algorithm is based off of a group of people who have been vetted and approved as right thinkers. No, genuinely, and as right think, and then those are the people who the machine learning bases its search preferences off of. One of the interesting things is how they edit the. I mean, people have known about this for years, right? But like the way they edit the predictive, they predict the end of your sentence when you're typing it into the search engine. And so if you type "men can" into the search engine, all of the responses are: men can have periods, men can get pregnant, men can have babies now, men can think about nothing, men can cook. That's that. If you type "women can," it's women can do it, women can do anything, women can vote, women can fly, and bizarrely at the end there, women can be drafted. So it's an odd set, but they also have this thing because they've completely removed any reference if you type Hillary Clinton's emails into Google, there is no predictive after it. And this has been manually instantiated by a Google employee because in a similar way. And you can tell because anything which trends in search percentages gets predictive text after it. If you search Donald Trump's emails, it gets predictive stuff after it saying this is how you can contact him: email address, email contact, email list, sign up, email address, Twitter, etc. And if you compare the search for Donald Trump's email to Hillary Clinton's email on trends.google.com, it shows a massive disparity between the two. Donald Trump's email, not trending at all, still gets predictive after it. Hillary Clinton's email trends massively back in 2016, and then still trends relative frequency now, although not as much as it did then, and gets no predictive, and it's all manual editing by Google, which is anyway. I encourage if you haven't seen the little expose, it's worth a look and to make up your own mind on.
They tend to be worthwhile. Yes, I mean once in a while they've got a story. Yes.
So there's that. And now if I look at the view account, I assume everyone's turned off from fake accents because I've just been prattling on about this other video for the past 20 minutes. But no, that's been the main gist of it anyway. But it interested me. Harry Channel says things one can do in the tub: 1, listen to Fake Accents Unite; 2, act out some drama with a rubber ducky involving port fees and tariffs. It's like the academic agent in the bath. Oh, we're not going to let you through unless you pay the levy. Ooh. Yes. Matthew Hatch says telling the truth is far right. Tim is a centrist. And JS says, what's your take on the Lauren Southern drama? I presume he's referencing the 2 interns that she had, the cameramen, who tried to charge for a large number of luxury items which were not on the expenses list for Borderless, her documentary. I personally...
Sorry, they were trying to charge whom?
They have
I'm
charged...
not familiar with this story.
Okay, so they've charged in the past other people they've worked with, other creators they've worked with. Mm-hmm. There was this whole thing about the fact that they tried to claim like a series of first-class flights and expensive dinners and stuff like that. And the only response from Lauren was, this is not a borderless expense when returning their thing. That there was like some accusation that Lauren had been sleeping her way up certain channels in order to get
coming
access.
From the 2 gentlemen who are renowned for their particular...
No. So that Milo dropped this story, one presumes in an effort to become relevant again. Much as I love Milo, it's just like I think he jumped on this a little too eagerly. So they were making a case that she knew all about it and that they were corrupt from the start, but she knew it and she had been covering for them and stuff like that. But there's been no evidence of that I've seen. Lauren Southern herself, who is obviously retiring now from the political game after making this documentary.
Well,
I think
so we are told.
so she says. I just do not like. There's no reason for her to do like half the stuff they're accusing her of, as if she doesn't have a significant enough following of people who would literally bend over backwards for the chance to work with her. Even regular people. So the idea that she had to do all this special stuff for them, these two people in particular, seems a bit fishy to me. But I don't have all the information. I don't pretend to. It's just that it all strikes me as really sour and off kilter, and I definitely don't think that she needed to exchange sexual favors for trips places.
So this accusation of her basically exchanging sexual favors came from these two assistants.
I believe so. After they were ratted out as basically stealing money and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, I don't think they've necessarily got their highest reputation for integrity. So yeah.
I'm just looking at what people Radlib, who if you don't know already, is a good friend of mine. He's a good friend of all of the Unpopular Opinions crew as well, and he's an anarchist.
Radlib, that is that extremely animated fellow who made that hysterical video yesterday, wasn't it?
He did. He's made a video, and
he was pretty much foaming at the mouth, if I remember rightly.
Called the Last Red Pill. So I recommend that if you have a few moments spare now, that you search him up on YouTube, you cue his video for after the stream, because it's only 5 minutes, I think, and you subscribe and let him know what you think of what his personal story and what he's going to produce is. Anyway, that's just mine.
But I think
he says,
I think you have to kind of mentally prepare the audience for something fairly frenetic.
Certainly. He says there was an investigation by Milo. It was solid on the two guys, but was shaky on the accusations against Lauren. Yes, that's generally what I got. There were plenty of receipts showing these two gentlemen taking advantage of their position, and they were let go at the end of it all. It's not like they kept it, but the evidence that Lauren knew that all this was going on and had been going on for years seems a lot shakier. Anyway. But there we go. Also, I'm just going to time out the academic agent. There we go. Bye. Because he said that Radlib was better than I was, and I will not tolerate his dissension in my channel. So he can sit in the corner for 300 seconds.
Well, I guess it all depends on what you look like in a bow tie.
Oh yes, Radical Liberation does pull off a bow tie quite marvelously, and he also has that the American accent that carries it off as well. So there's always that bonus.
Well, as I was saying, I think Lionel better watch out. Lionel from Lionel Media, if you're familiar.
I'm not.
He once in a while he once in a while does a sort of piece in a bow tie. He's always very dapper. He's always very well presented. More often than not, he's wearing a tie, but once in a while he turns up with a bow tie. It's a channel sort of worth watching. I think he has slid more and more and more to the right. I mean, when he began, it was kind of critical of Trump and praising of Trump, whereas that seems to have gone completely out the window over time, and now it's just Trump is the God Emperor. But he's very. I think the way to call it is he's very magnetic. He sits right in front of the camera and kind of talks to you, and you do get the sense as if you're kind of across the table in a diner, sitting right opposite him. He has got this way of talking to camera, I believe he's still a practicing lawyer, so he's got a sort of spiel of how to talk to people. At the same time, I believe he's got quite a career behind him of being on radio, radio presenter and whatever. I think it may be an Emmy he's got on the shelf behind him. So I suspect this is an award-winning presenter, if you know what I mean. The academic agent might be interested to know that I think he also did presentation of wrestling for some time. So, once in a while when I've used some kind of terminology, it's usually because I picked it up from Lionel, because he once in a while refers to his wrestling days and whatever.
Hello.
Welcome
there.
back.
Yes, you're back. We just assumed that some violent storm in Scotland had once sort of thrown over the one mast that carries the lonesome wire up north.
Yeah, we didn't get completely washed away today.
That's always good. Your internet went, did it, or the electricity meter or something?
No, just the internet. It always seems to just cut off at 9:30. I don't know. I have no idea why.
It's the SNP internet curfew coming into effect. It's for your own good.
For you.
It's for your own good. The people now I banned AA from the chat for 5 minutes, and now people would say I'm blocking lessons from Britisher, and this is weak. And that's
no, not at all. No. I have warmed to blocking. It makes life so much easier.
I've been told that to ban someone and he will super chat me, and I don't want to do that just to spite him. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Anyway, I hope people can appreciate the fact that AA needed to be put in his place, and now he's got out. So there's that. Is there anything else, Pete, you're interested in news this week other than Boris and my slight intervention with Google there?
Not that I can think of right now.
What was it?
The week isn't that old.
No, you're quite right, but I'm talking about the last 7 days, Britisher. I mean, surely in your capacity producing the week that was, you'll have noticed a few bits and pieces.
Well, yes, but this is the danger of repeating oneself, isn't it?
Well, you assume that anyone in the audience has watched your show.
Well, it's more like no one has these days.
Britisher.
The YouTube, yes, yeah, but precisely. Can I please have the violins? Yes, YouTube is definitely ensuring that things are getting interesting for people. I mean, I'm just looking through some notes of stuff that I didn't touch. Yeah, there's an interesting one that someone raised. I think it was on Twitter. That in Kirklees, a grooming gang, 44 suspects were arrested.
Oh yes, I saw this, and
I remember it was on Twitter. Somebody said, this is happening, and what is everybody talking about?
Boris Johnson having a spat. Yeah. It was it's one of the larger cases as well. Like, I mean, obviously it's accused and not convicts, but as far as I'm aware, the conviction rate's rather high on these particular cases, and usually it's groups of 10. So the idea of 44 all at once is insane. And it's a miracle that I've seen it in nowhere except I think The Independent ran a small op-ed piece on it, but that was basically smothered between the deluge of.
It's precisely
Boris.
The Independent piece that I've got, in my notes. So yeah, there was also an interesting one. I never got a chance to read the whole article, or never got snippets of it. But there was also an interesting article in the Sun. Prison perks. Female lags should be given mobiles and allowed virtual visits by family via video calls.
Yep,
review says.
I've seen that. Yep. Oh my goodness. It's just like, yep. In fact, why do we even bother sending women to prison at all? You shouldn't do it. And I have seen, I can't remember who it was, but I believe at one point one particularly ardent feminist made that argument that we shouldn't.
Yes, yeah, I've heard that too. Yes, it's just interesting, isn't it? How this kind of plays out. So man evil, woman always innocent, no matter what.
Or even if so, like, oh, you've got to give the benefit of the doubt. I mean,
Yes,
really.
particularly in the case of.
But what drove her to do it?
Mentally distressed and beat her husband to death with a hammer. Do you remember that was in the news recently?
Well, it was that next to the woman who cut off her husband's penis in the night because she believed he was cheating, and then when he survived that, broke into the hotel he was staying at and poured acid over his face. Yeah, that sort of thing.
Reasonable things to do. Yes,
all that stuff. The
yeah, I mean, there was also the issue of what is it in the Metro? I have this article. Rory Stewart calls for 300,000 supporters to take over Tory party after being booted from leadership race.
Yeah, of course. Well, I was surprised he didn't back Gove, to be honest, like before he got knocked out. Academic Agent saw a presentation, which I did as well, which argued that a woman who was guilty of sexual assault was still a victim. Because we were talking, I was like, run this by me again. We were talking about this the other day. And it was just, it was a man who sexually assaults a woman is the perpetrator and she's a victim. But if she assaults a man, then due to the letter of the law and everything and all that, it can't be done. She can't have assaulted him. It's impossible. But because usually alcohol is involved, she's a victim, which was weird. Like the whole thing was really bizarre. I've just had, like, I want to let people know, right? Because I've just had a super chat from Marcus 10, donated £2 to say, ban me for 300 seconds, you bastard. And one of my mods at Scowen banned him as per his request. And I just want to let everyone in chat know that I'm more than willing to ban you from my chat for money. I'm not above that. British Knight says, random question. Do you think it would be worth someone making a video on the political history of Boris Johnson, given that he's likely to be PM? Britisher, your channel is taking a bit of a dive at the moment. Wouldn't you need like a hit? It's being served to you on a platter by British Knight here.
Well, I think even if I put up a video which contained the word Boris Johnson, sex scandal, Conservative Party, and Donald Trump, I still don't think it would necessarily get it trending.
I can just hear AA frantically scribbling like Boris Johnson history with Sadiq Khan revealed or something,
Yes,
and then getting another 500,000 hits.
Boris Johnson in gay love tryst with Sadiq Khan. Yes.
Anything we could do. Rory Stewart watched from cupboard, that sort of thing. Let me see.
Surely.
So what? Sorry, what?
Closet, surely.
I mean, we're not Americans.
No, I know.
I mean,
what did they come out of?
Didn't you used to be a teacher? I mean, there's no wonder you failed. It's just rude today.
I think.
Well, I killed the conversation, didn't I? It's all good.
Well,
yeah, doesn't tell your guests. It's fine.
Yeah, I've put the link in the sidebar there. We had Gillette double down on their identity politics again.
Oh my goodness! Yes. Let me share the screen.
Because, these days, if gentlemen shave, they do so in full makeup.
Strong. Here we go. Behold, we have the funny thing with this was, is this archived? Because there were definitely more responses to this than one retweet and 2 likes. Maybe
yeah, this is not archived. This is from Twitter itself. So yes, there must have been some let's say pruning going on since.
I may have seen it on Facebook as well. The favorite thing was from all the women who were saying, who applies makeup before they shave? It's like, why would you ever do that? I mean, like you're just gonna you're gonna ruin it afterwards, especially lipstick and so on.
Here's an interesting one. This you might like this. Elizabeth Taylor shaved.
Who?
Elizabeth Taylor shaved. Marilyn Monroe shaved.
Oh yes, that irritating woman. Go on.
The reason they did so is quite simple. Women have a certain amount of facial hair, but it's more you sort of have to think sort of close
Sorry,
to
my academic agent is having an absolute fit in the chat. It's, who?
So basically, you have to sort of think where there would be a continuation of what we could call the sideburns.
Yeah.
There in particular, women will often have sort of like hair that is more like peach fuzz, if you know what I mean. And the problem with that is that if you have a close-up of a face that is plastered on a giant cinema screen, that shows up. So in order to basically avoid that problem, they would have to shave it. So the film stars of old, and one can assume more than likely the film stars of today, the female ones, will shave in order to shave away those very, very fine hairs. Because
it doesn't surprise me.
if you are basically on one of those cinema screens, your head is suddenly ginormous. So the slightest thing will suddenly show up.
Oh dear. Yes, people are irritated because I don't know who Elizabeth Taylor is. Yes.
Well, she was a major star, so yes.
I'm gonna have to look her up now, right? Because oh, but the triggering was so enjoyable. Oh, it was. Oh, give me your tears taste so sweet, AA. Ah, yes, give me more of them.
But anyway, I mean, while you are looking up Elizabeth Taylor, what do we make of Gillette having learned absolutely nothing from the last time they went totally woke?
That's fine. I'll just keep growing my beard.
So
like I needed
effectively what you're proposing is a kind of Gillette strike. Let's just everybody grow beards.
Absolutely. We need more beards in this world.
It's a worrying thing to say. But yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I'm useless at growing a beard. I can kind of grow moustache and chin beard, if you know what I mean. And then everything sort of on the cheeks is just sort of a straggly mess.
You need a proper mustachio.
I can...
Like has been depicted of you many times.
Yes, yeah. No, I could grow a moustache, but I have no interest in doing so.
You should.
But when it comes to growing a beard, it would just be useless, if I would try to grow a beard. I did know somebody who actually did not grow a beard at all. So there does seem to be that sort of genetic variation. I mean, this was actually quite a big bloke, but no beard whatsoever. And he thought it was wonderful because, unlike everybody else, he didn't have to scrape the hair off his face every day.
I can confirm that the only film of Elizabeth Taylor's that I've ever watched is 1994's The Flintstones.
Oh dear God!
With John Goodman.
Wow. Okay.
In her final appearance, where she played someone called Pearl Slaghoople.
Pearl Slaghoople. So your recollection of Elizabeth Taylor is Pearl Slaghoople.
That is if I even remember her at all, which is unlikely.
If I can make a recommendation, then
no,
I don't care. I'm going to give it you anyway. Watch Ivanhoe, because in Ivanhoe,
are you calling me a hoe? I don't like this.
Yes, in Ivanhoe, she plays Rebecca of York, and she's on quite good form there. At the same time, of course, Ivanhoe, the villain, the one who plays is it Bois Gilbert, I believe, is actually played by a lesser known actor known as George Sanders. So it might be of double interest to you, if you know what I mean.
Someone in the chat.
I'm going to watch it now.
Let me see. A silly sailor says, "My culture is not your prom dress." Let me see. People are asking if I've heard of Richard Burton as well.
That is actually a fair question given the context. Yes.
I mean, I've read 1984, but I've not seen it.
Well, that's
Yes.
something. At least you knew he was in that.
I have Google open right now.
Oh shit!
I'm afraid.
Let's be honest. If it weren't for Google, would you know who Richard Burton was?
Absolutely not.
That is worrying.
Absolutely not.
Oh,
Again, we could go through this all evening. Do you know what? Let's extend the stream by an extra 20 minutes, and you can throw films that I should have watched at me, and actors and actresses that I should know, and I will let you know if I've heard of any of them.
Well, I watched the
O'Toole.
Flintstones movie at the cinema.
Sorry?
Peter O'Toole.
No, I don't know Peter O'Toole.
Oof. Yes. So basically,
you made the Britisher go oof. That's pretty bad.
you've never seen Lawrence of Arabia.
Let me see. No, I haven't
never
seen
seen
it.
it,
I've never seen that. I've never seen Troy. I've never seen Lawrence of Arabia.
But no, Troy is not worth
I tell you what,
seeing.
I've seen Ratatouille, and apparently he's in that. I've seen Stardust. Apparently he was in that.
Oh,
I've not seen Zulu Dawn. No.
Zulu Dawn. Yes, he's in that. He's also in How to Steal a Million, which is a charming film.
Which I have also never heard of.
It's the sort of film. Well, it's only a film with Audrey Hepburn. Have you heard of Audrey Hepburn?
I have indeed heard of Audrey Hepburn, but I couldn't name anything that she's been in.
Oh dear God. Okay, yes, but at least you've heard the name. No, he was in a film with her where they're trying to steal something from a museum. It's the kind of film where I have been tempted to do another film review, because it's exactly that sort of film I very much enjoy reviewing for folks. Particularly because it isn't one of the big famous movies out there, if you know what I mean. But it's one of those that you've got the feeling if you would point people to it, they would nonetheless enjoy it. So How to Steal a Million is definitely one to kind of put on your list of films to watch.
I appear to have lost 850 subscribers. I don't know what it is.
Sorry, what?
No, I'm joking.
Okay. No, I believe actually the chap who plays Audrey Hepburn's father, or the father of the character Audrey Hepburn plays, is a Welshman, something Griffiths. I'm struggling, but no doubt people will Google this and tell me. He was the chap who played the Arab who owned the white horses in Ben-Hur.
I've not seen Ben-Hur.
Oh dear God!
Me neither.
I advised you to watch Ben-Hur about a year ago.
I know. I mean, we only met a year ago, so to be fair, it's been a while.
Ben-Hur and Spartacus are definitely two films that are sort of a must. I know now everybody will say, "Oh, here he goes again. He's talking about the Romans."
Well, I do remember.
But they are actually two of the greatest films ever made.
Yes, I do remember different things. It's like I know you are disparaging of it, but I do remember being slated when I was young for having not seen Gladiator either.
Yes, that's not one of the greatest movies ever made.
I've not seen it either. To be fair, to be honest with you, Mark, I'm probably not much better.
I enjoyed Star Wars. That was.
I haven't seen any Star Wars films, so there we go.
So well, as long as you stick to the first three they made, not the ones they now deem part 1, 2, and 3, but actually the first 3 they made, then you're on solid ground. Everything since is complete nonsense.
So, Scowen has responded to Silly Sailor saying, "My culture is not your prom dress," by saying, "Your culture is my pillage."
So talking. So hang on.
Sorry, I will get you in a second.
Go ahead.
Radical Liberation has said, "Who's afraid of Virginia Woolf Taming of the Shrew?" I presume these are films I'm supposed to know.
The Shrew, I would have thought you'd know that one, surely.
Let me see. I know that it was a play or something by Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Marcus 10 says, "If you don't watch Lawrence of Arabia, I will hunt you." So there's that.
Hunt me then.
So when it comes to say Ben-Hur and Spartacus, have you heard of Kirk Douglas?
He's still alive.
The name rings a bell.
Somehow he's still
Charlton
alive.
Heston. He played in Ben-Hur. Charlton Heston.
I know Charlton Heston.
Okay, so can you point to a film that you've seen with Charlton Heston in it? I mean, given that Charlton Heston was one of the biggest Hollywood stars of all times.
True Lies.
Okay. So not the Amiga Man or
I've watched the Mega Man, yeah.
Or Planet of the Apes.
But I hated
original.
Planet of the Apes.
Before it went all CGI.
No, I didn't watch the new ones, and I hated the old ones, so I've never watched those. I don't like the concept in general. So it's not necessarily that it's a bad film. It's just that that particular premise doesn't interest me. So,
wasn't he also in The Towering Inferno?
You say that as if I know what that film is.
Jesus Christ.
What did you shut up, Mr. I've never seen Star Wars.
Yeah, well, I know what happens in it though, and I know who's in it.
Talking of Lawrence of Arabia, what about Omar Sharif?
Oh, yes, but
him, yes.
No. I know Omar Sharif as an older man.
You know him as an older man who was very good at bridge. He wrote several books about it. He was completely obsessed with playing bridge. Then Anthony Quinn is also in Lawrence of Arabia. What about Anthony Quinn? Ever heard of him?
No. Anthony Quinn. Let's see. What else would I know him from? I mean, you're talking about things that were made 20 years before I was born, British, in fairness. Yes. Although he was in Last Action Hero, and I've seen that.
Please, for the love of God, not like
that's the only one of his films I've seen.
See, this is one of the issues here, because most of the sort of the great films that we're talking about here were made before I was alive. It's completely irrelevant in that regard that it precedes you.
It doesn't. Okay, all right, no, that's fair. But my entire youth was spent obsessing over a mixture of fantasy and science fiction, rather than historical fiction.
Well, yes, but not. This goes off in any sort of direction when you're talking films. But some of the films are kind of part of the sort of collective culture, that there will be references made to films that, in order to even understand what the joke or what is kind of meant, is you have to have actually seen these movies. So to a certain extent, these sort of grand films of the past form part of sort of the collective culture. It's
you assume so, but I think most people my age haven't seen these films.
Yes, but I think most people your age therefore should do a lot of catching up.
Of course you do. They're a part of your collective culture.
Well, how should we say? The thing is that these actually are things of true quality.
I've watched Tom and Jerry. That's true quality.
Actually, yes, I would agree with you. I think Tom and Jerry is true quality. As long as we're actually talking the not the newer ones that they made.
Not the rubbish new ones.
The complete rip-off. Sort of the old originals are absolutely fantastic.
Yes.
If you can really get people to utterly belly laugh within, a clip that is only 3 or 4 minutes long, I mean, that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's a a work of art.
Or a Britisher. You can stop sucking Tom and Jerry off now. I don't know who else. Tailed, like you're of a slightly in between generation between me and Britisher. What should I have
Excuse me.
watched?
How old are you again?
Younger than you are.
I know. How much younger?
I can't remember how old you are specifically.
I'm 33.
Okay, I am younger than 33.
Yes. And I don't know how old Britisher is either. Old as the hills.
Britisher is not yet 50.
Old as the hills. Yes.
Yes.
Wait, I'm not that far away, but yes.
I know how old you are, Britisher. I even know when your birthday is, but we won't mention.
This is beginning to worry me now.
You told me months ago. And I've held on to it because it's like the only amount of personal information. You will get a card sent from me to Tailed to you.
So hang on. Here is a question. Here's a question to both of you. Given that you are of differing age, I am assured.
Presumably.
Some like it hot.
Yes, I've seen that film.
Thank you. You are part of the Western world. Mr. Not So Obvious, Some Like It Hot.
Never heard of it.
Jesus.
Featuring Jack Lemmon, Tony Curtis, and Marilyn Monroe.
The only Marilyn Monroe film I know, and because my friend was talking to me about this a month ago, and was like, "You've never watched anything with Marilyn Monroe in it," so I was like, "Okay, what should I do?" And it was something about Prince or something like that.
That's the one with Laurence Olivier in it.
And she couldn't understand it because she was like, he's a dick to her the entire film, and somehow halfway through she decides she's in love with him when she has no reason to be in love with him.
Yes, it's far from a successful film. I think Laurence Olivier himself didn't like it by the end. And
so I watched one scene of that and decided that her voice was incredibly annoying and she was dreadfully unattractive, and that was that. Hang
on. Marilyn Monroe is dreadful.
I like the idea that I'm giving both you and the academic agent some kind of conjoined aneurysm at the moment.
I didn't expect you to be coming out as gay in this particular stream.
I'm not gay. She just sounds like she's on 4 times speed all the time.
Watch Some Like It Hot.
No.
Please, for the love of God, watch Some Like It Hot. It will shock you because it's in black and white. There was such a time when people made black and white movies.
Britisher, I can deal with black and white. I've watched Schindler's List.
Some red in there as well.
That was completely.
It was a line I once used on Twitter, which created quite a kerfuffle, I believe, and it is actually taken from that film. When Jack Lemmon finally says it's like Jell-O on springs. So watch out for that line, ladies and gentlemen. So yes, Singing in the Rain.
No.
Yes.
The Harry Channel is asking what's the oldest movie I have watched, and I'm trying to think how far back.
The Britisher's original porn film.
There you go.
I mean, that was carved on stone tablets, BC,
exactly.
But
they were the other tablets that I carried down from Mount Sinai, which Moses broke.
I don't think I've watched anything which has been interesting enough to remain in my memory older than, I don't know, probably 70s.
70s?
Maybe.
Wow,
I don't think I've watched anything older than that. I don't know. Like I haven't watched it, and like I haven't even watched anything like old, cheesy stuff like Boris Karloff's old horror flicks or anything like that.
You've not even watched that.
But I've not watched them. I'm aware they existed, but
I believe it's on YouTube. Buster Keaton, The General. I believe it was the most expensive film of its day, if I'm not mistaken, given that they broke an entire locomotive and so on. I believe it's a silent movie, so you will really enjoy that. And Buster Keaton does happen to be very funny. And I'm just looking it up, and it says 1926. So there's something to
No.
really stretch yourself.
I'm more than happy to watch things. I'm probably
Have
not
you
likely
ever
to watch.
heard of Buster Keaton?
No.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, so
I feel
you
like
have
this
never seen the famous shot of a comedian in a black and white movie. It was a silent film where he is caught in a storm, and things start falling to pieces around him, and the front of an entire house falls off the house, and as it
No.
tips away, he just happens to be standing where the open window is that comes down on him.
Hmm.
It's one of the most famous stunts in movie history. This does not ring a bell.
No, not really. When I think the most famous stunts in movie history, I think of the final chase scene in the Blues Brothers.
Okay, yes, that's quite a stunt. Have you ever seen the film Remo?
I've never even heard of it, mate.
That was made in the 80s, and at the time they were renovating the Statue of Liberty.
Okay.
And they did, because they were renovating her, they had scaffolding all around her. So they decided, well, why don't we use this for the film? So there was a scene at which obviously the hero is pushed and whatever, and ends up hanging by one hand from a kind of pole that's bending away from the scaffolding.
Okay.
And I particularly remember that because the chap who actually did that won the equivalent of the Oscar for stuntman for that particular, because I think you get a fair impression as to how tall the Statue of Liberty is. So
Yeah.
if you're up there hanging by one hand, what can one say? It was quite a stunt to pull off.
Let me see. Matthew Hatch says Condor Man. I've seen that. That was my favorite film as a child.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. It's hardly a classic, but yes, I do remember.
It is definitely a classic Britisher, and I won't hear a bad word said against it. The scene where what is the equivalent of a then Lamborghini emerging from the bottom of a gypsy truck to take on the Brock Noviach is one of the greatest moments in cinema history, and you will not convince me otherwise.
Thank you for that. Yes, one of the greatest moments in cinema history. Yes,
I loved it.
So,
it was a film I watched like every week when I was young. It was
okay,
great.
so can we expunge? First off, can we expunge? All Americans, listen up. Let us expunge the memory of the Magnificent Seven, and therefore ask, not so obvious, whether he has ever heard of the Seven Samurai.
Yes, and it got remade, didn't it? Twice.
Did it?
And I have not seen the original. But I wanted to watch the original because I watched both the remakes. Because it was remade into a Western.
That was the
at the
Magnificent
end,
Seven. Yes.
Recently. And I watched that, and people were telling me that the original was much better. So I wanted to watch that. Look, people are just spamming chat now. It's like, oh my goodness. Radical Lib says, Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins. Loved it.
Yes.
So it's going says, press 1 to abduct NSO and feed him good old movies. Ratface says, any Mel Brooks movie? I've seen lots of Mel Brooks films. I always enjoyed a good comedy there. Monty Python, yes, and plenty of Monty Python.
How about Fred Astaire?
No.
You've never seen anything with Fred Astaire in it? Do
No.
you even know who Fred Astaire was?
No.
Wow. Actually, I once read in one of these kind of books. This was before the days of the internet, ladies and gentlemen. Now, of course, we have lists for everything. But there was a book once I read about sort of the most calamitous corporate decisions ever made, and funnily enough, Fred Astaire featured in that because apparently he went to one film studio for an audition, and they rejected him. So he ended up with another film studio, and of course became the greatest film star on earth in his day. And apparently he was rejected, and in the notes, the person who saw him said, "Balding can sing a little, supposedly can dance," or something like that.
Brutal.
Strong.
Yeah. So no, Fred Astaire definitely should kind of make it onto your lists of something to watch once in order to kind of introduce you to what went before.
Silly Sailor's telling me that I should have Clockwork Orange eye spreaders on to watch
Yes.
these, but the
Yeah,
joke's
yeah.
on him because I haven't even seen a Clockwork Orange.
Yes. Yeah. No. There's an interesting little anecdote about Fred Astaire, and that was when at the Grammys, Michael Jackson performed Billie Jean. That's where the first time he ever did the moonwalk publicly.
Mhm.
And when he was finished in that performance, again, you'll find it on YouTube, he's got the whole place on its feet. I mean, it is one of these standout performances. And that night, when he got back to the hotel, he got a phone call, and it was Fred Astaire.
Mm.
And he had basically got in touch with his agent to get in touch with Michael Jackson's agent in order to get the number. And he just called him and he said, "Boy, you can move."
Amazing.
And to base it, you just have to kind of put yourself into that position. So here you are, Michael Jackson, you're making it big, and pretty much the world's most famous dancer calls you and goes, "That was good."
Nice. Respect. People are saying, ever heard of Laurel and Hardy? I've heard of Laurel and Hardy.
You have never seen a Laurel and Hardy film.
I can't say I have.
So you've never seen them try and get that piano up the staircase.
I can't say I have. People are saying Kubrick. I've seen A Space Odyssey. I thought it was overrated.
There you go. You've seen something that was from before the 70s then.
Is that old?
Yeah, Charlie Chaplin. If you haven't seen Laurel and Hardy, have you seen Charlie Chaplin?
Well, obviously clips.
I was going to say, I think the oldest film the earliest film I've seen was The Kid.
Mm-hmm.
I saw, what was it, The Great Dictator.
Okay.
So was that.
Have you seen the Marx Brothers?
I love the Marx Brothers.
No, I'm not a communist, so no.
The Marx Brothers, the famous mirror scene of the Marx Brothers.
Brilliant. Is that
where basically it's actually a doorway, and he thinks he's in front of a mirror. So the chap on the other side of the doorway just basically copies his every move.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, I think
actually. Here's a thing with the Marx Brothers. I think their name is a joke. You see, the Marx Brothers, it comes from basically, what is it, the Brotherhood of Saint Mark. So we're talking sort of 15th century, something like that. On the continent of Europe, you could hire these guys. They were, tended to be huge men who had these kind of two-handed swords. So you'd have to think of something like a claymore or whatever in Scotland. Once you start swinging this thing, it's almost impossible to stop it.
No, you can only swing it for a short period of time.
On a battlefield, these were incredibly dangerous men. But of course, it also meant they were very powerfully built and they knew how to handle themselves. And they formed this brotherhood. And it basically was kind of the mark of quality. If you wanted your mercenaries, then you may want a few guys from the Brotherhood of Saint Mark. And over time, that got shortened to the Marx Brothers.
Huh.
And the interesting thing about the Marx Brothers was that given that they had such a reputation and they were so useful, they got double pay.
Oh, very nice. And
that's why I can't help but feel that them having called themselves the Marx Brothers might have been a kind of spin on we ought to be getting double pay.
On the other hand, you could be entirely projecting, but it's an incredible theory.
Exactly. Yes, I could. I could entirely be projecting, but I've just got the feeling there might be something to that, given the nature of them.
The Rasden Faustin says the historical Marx Brothers were basically a fencing guild, not mercenaries. I'm afraid you're wrong here, Britisher.
Fences again.
Nonsense.
Christian Verti has donated €5. Thank you very much. And says, how about Britishers' common knowledge? Has the Britisher seen Edwin Lane's The Unknown Soldier, 1955, based on Vaino Linnas' novel of the same name, 1954?
No.
Ha!
And I don't care. Here's one. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
No.
I just read that recently.
People, I did not.
It's regarded as a masterpiece. It's a beautiful film.
I'm sure it is.
It's kind of an almost. One could almost call it an earlier version of The Shawshank Redemption.
Okay, I enjoyed The Shawshank Redemption when I saw that last year for the first time. People in chat are saying 2001 is not overrated and it was made before the moon landing. Now that does impress me because the effects hold up today.
The effects, yes, the effects were very good, but as a film, dead boring.
It very thematic. It reminds me. I thought Eraserhead was more interesting, but it was,
anything by Alfred Hitchcock. Ever seen a Hitchcock film?
Name a Hitchcock film.
The Birds.
There's one.
I've not seen The Birds. I know plenty about The Birds. I've seen many reviews of The Birds. It doesn't particularly interest me. I know it was famous because it was the first film to be banned, and it used to scare people in cinemas so much that they threw up.
And there's no
North by Northwest.
I've not seen North by Northwest. I am familiar with the name. Sorry?
Vertigo.
Yes.
Don't know it.
Oh, yes. So, given that we're talking Vertigo, have you ever heard of the star James Stewart?
No.
Have you ever seen It's a Wonderful Life?
Maybe one episode? No, it's a film. It's a film.
I've not seen a
film.
James
Stewart is the main. He's the main protagonist in the film.
No, I haven't
Have you
seen
seen
it.
Widely regarded as one of the best films ever made.
No,
Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
12 Angry Men.
Yes, I have. I watched that
Okay.
for the first time 3 years ago, and it was a great film.
Who is the main actor in that?
God knows.
Henry Fonda.
Oh yes, you have a thing. You have a bit of a hard-on for Henry Fonda, don't you?
Do I? I mean, you are familiar with the fact that, again, he is a very big star in film history.
Yes, I'm aware because you've ranted at me about him before. Marcus is moaning that he has not had a super chat read out that had no text on it. So thank you for sending me a super chat, Marcus. Then, let me see. I don't know what else. People like High Noon, Bad Day
Yes.
at Black Rock.
The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Can I ask?
No.
Can I ask you another actor?
Go for it.
Humphrey Bogart.
I see that rings a bell.
That's something.
Jimmy Cagney.
No, not even
Edward
a little.
G. Robinson.
Not even a little bit. Humphrey Bogart. Now, what on earth was Humphrey Bogart in?
Chicago gangster films in black and white.
I've never watched any gangster films. I've not watched any westerns either.
Yes, yeah. But you
So
are familiar with it. Please, let's just clear this up. This is how low we now have to go. Just in order to find a common denominator.
You will not
have
find
you
me.
heard of John Wayne?
I've heard of John Wayne.
Oh my God. I thought I was bad. Really.
John Wayne. Filmography. Let's see. Oh, I presume that you're referring to Clint Eastwood. I don't know. I have no idea.
John Wayne, the biggest, most famous cowboy of all times. Yes.
Yeah. No, that sounds about right.
Who happened to have a starring role in The Longest Day? You are no doubt familiar with The Longest Day.
I'm familiar with The Longest Day. I've not seen it. I think we're just hurting now. I like people in chat are going, you must, at this point I have to be pulling your legs. But the truth is that genuinely in this particular field is one of my biggest blind spots, and I'm well aware of it. But it is funny because people like this and a lot of popular music and film have absolutely no.
Well, I just find it remarkable because these are such joys, and to discover these things would be so. If I could go back to the point where I had not yet seen these, and I could watch them all in the kind of wonderment you experience when you see films of that quality, I mean, it would be, you wouldn't be able to peel me away from the television.
So one of my friends was talking to me about this the other day because she's really big into music, and I haven't listened to hardly anything in classic music because I was raised on other stuff, as most of you are aware, but it's weird because I'm put off listening to or watching some of this stuff on the basis that it riles me that you have a reaction so intense to me having not known it.
I know what you mean, actually.
Do you know what I mean?
When people say to me, you must like Radiohead because you're a musician, I instantly go, fuck you, I'm not making the bother.
I've not listened to Radiohead, but
much.
So like one of the things was I'd never listened to any Led Zeppelin, for instance, and one of my friends sent me this song, I think Stairway to Heaven or something like that, and I was like, I've never listened to this song, it's quite good, and they basically had a heart attack on the spot, and it's one of those things where I have this thing where I'm like, this sort of, you must listen to this, or you must watch that, or how could you have avoided this? It seemed like everyone was watching X, Y, and Z, and I just go, well, I did. Fuck you if you're gonna do it. Not that I have that particular attitude to you, but like it's kind of a visceral reaction. I've enjoyed some films which people have foisted on me, and others not so much. So, for instance, I enjoyed 12 Angry Men very much, whereas I didn't enjoy Forrest Gump, for instance, and I didn't watch Forrest Gump until recently as well. Was there anything particularly that kind of put you off Forrest Gump? No.
Was it just too saccharine? Was it too cheesy?
No, the thing that put me off was the fact that he had absolutely no appreciation for how incredible his life was because of his condition.
Yeah, but wasn't that kind of part of the joke?
Well, that was the joke, but it just pissed me off. So I was just like, you've got all this stuff. The cinematography is great. I found him as a character distinctly and deeply unlikable.
Okay.
So that didn't help me. I didn't want him to succeed. I couldn't care about his character at all. So therefore I was not invested. You know what I mean?
Can I ask you about this film? Because I think you will get a reaction from the audience for this particular film.
Oh God.
And I think this is one of the films that you kind of almost unanimously get love for. Smokey and the Bandit.
I've watched one of the Smokey and the Bandit films.
Please tell me it was the first one.
Many years ago.
Because
when I was at my grandparents' house and there was nothing else to watch.
The later sequels, they are terrible.
If it helps, I can remember two scenes from this film in the cabins of trucks and nothing else. And that's it.
Smokey and the Bandit really is one of those films that I have not yet met anybody who's told me they didn't like that film. It really is one of those that, it's just a lovable film. Everything about it is just joyous.
Tailed feature is in chat going, I haven't seen it.
Nope.
And Christian Marcus 10 says Stevie Wonder has seen more classic films than I have.
Do you know who Stevie Wonder is?
Yeah, of course. I saw the Blues Brothers.
Of course. Well, we didn't.
I like that people are sending stuff like, I have no idea what these things are. I presume they're film titles. Cannonball Run, Deliverance,
Cannonball Run is a film, yes, that
Monkey
is a bit
Magic.
inspired by Smokey and the Bandit. Deliverance, yeah, that's an interesting film with Burt Reynolds, yes.
It's also interesting that someone said with Nail and I.
What I find
Okay,
funny is
yeah.
what I also find funny is I've never seen a Burt Reynolds film, but I watched all of Archer, and he constantly references Burt Reynolds.
But yes, Burt Reynolds, again, a very, very big star, yes. And it clear, I think most people would agree the one film that completely defined his career was Smokey and the Bandit. So I think
see.
if you're looking for just one thing to take away from this to watch, when I really think you won't go wrong,
I feel like I've
is Smokey
revealed.
and the Bandit.
I feel like I've revealed too much of my personal history to people. How it's all like, and you got people in chat going double hit here. Painted blue. This says Yellow Submarine. Now I presume this is both a film and a song.
That is correct.
Yeah.
I've not seen the film. I'm
have
vaguely
we
aware
heard
it's
from-
tied to the Beatles, is it not?
Have we heard from the academic agent?
No,
I'm just-
he's
I'm
died.
beginning to worry that he might have drowned in the bath.
He did drown himself. I am a bad person and I should feel sad. Thank you, Nicholas Daly. Clark Gable. I've never heard of Clark Gable.
Again, a very big star.
Let me see. Have you seen Braveheart held feature?
Yeah, when it came out.
Oh my goodness!
So
Before it became a political movement, you mean?
Yes, I think
Yes.
I was 10 when it came out, and I thought it was shit then.
Fair enough. I don't know. The Longest Yard. No, I've not seen it. Boogie
Okay,
Nights.
yes,
No,
that's-
I've not
again,
seen
it's
it.
a very worthwhile. It's a very worthwhile film. Again, The Longest Yard. Yes.
Monkey Magic. I've not seen.
Every Which Way But Loose.
What?
That's a fun film. Yes, that's Clint Eastwood. Clint Eastwood. Every Which Way But Loose is a Clint Eastwood movie.
Yeah.
Oh, another Western. Okay.
No,
Western.
not at all a Western. In fact, it's one of the most creative uses of an orangutan I've ever seen in a film.
All right.
don't know why that
Like
one-
whatever turns you on, Britisher. You know.
I have no idea why that one popped in my head. There you go.
But no, Every Which Way But Loose. Again, it's a fun.
Gone with the Wind. I'm aware of its
I
existence,
think
but
a
I've
lot
never
of
seen
people
it.
think when it comes to films that it always has to be terribly highbrow and it has to be this. It doesn't. It just needs to be good at what it is trying to accomplish. And Every Which Way But Loose is, I think we can say, is kind of a lowbrow slapstick film and whatever, but it's good at what it does and it's fun to watch.
Let me see. Alien. I've seen Alien.
Okay.
The Breakfast Club. No. I don't know that one.
Ferris, given that we're in that territory with the Breakfast Club and whatever, so, teenagers and whatever, how about Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
Not seen it.
Have you ever seen the original movie, the first one? I mean, it's one of those that was, again...
I've seen The
sequel to
Goonies.
death. Have you ever seen Police Academy?
Yes.
Did you laugh? Please
Yes.
say you did.
Well, it's in the same realm as Naked Gun and all that. I've seen
It
all
is
that.
in that. It is in that territory. But I must say, I've got a special fond place for Police Academy. I think that's a very good film.
I watched a lot of. I've seen all of the Police Academy films. I even suffered through the fifth one.
Yes,
I
terrible.
saw Mission to Moscow at the cinema.
What?
I remember this. This will tell you things, folks. I remember seeing the original Police Academy in the cinema.
Strong, Britisher. It's very brave of you to admit that you paid money to watch it.
Well, no, I would pay money again to watch Police Academy in the cinema. I think the first one is brilliant. It's beautiful.
Let me see. What else have we got? Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Oh yes,
I've never heard of that.
Steve Martin and John Candy.
Oh, I know both of those people.
Wonderful, wonderful film. If you don't end up on the floor rolling about watching that film, I don't know what will do that. It's pure joy.
Let me see. An officer.
Hear no evil, see no evil.
I don't know it.
Yeah, not bad, but nothing. I mean, it's Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder, isn't it?
Yeah, I've not actually
let me see.
it.
People are putting Pulp Fiction. I tried to watch Pulp Fiction, but I can't stand John Travolta.
I've watched Pulp Fiction twice and thought it was shit both times. So there you go.
An Officer and a Gentleman rings a bell, but I can't
Yes, I think
recall
that
it.
film is particularly famous for being just about the first mainstream movie in which somebody mispronounced the name Jeremy Hunt.
Top Gun. Watched it. I thought it was overrated. Just because
I think it's a piece of fun.
I don't know. I enjoyed Hot Shots more than I enjoyed
Okay.
Top Gun, and I appreciate Top Gun for having produced material that became Hot Shots. Have I seen the Terminator? Yeah, love. I've seen almost all of Arnold Schwarzenegger's films, which come as no surprise. My dad is a huge Arnie fan.
So did you see The Predator?
Yeah, I've seen Predator.
So what would you which would you prefer, Terminator or Predator?
Terminator.
I would prefer The Predator. I thought that was.
They're both in the same vein. Like, I like both films. I think I prefer the universe of Terminator.
Terminator,
I suppose,
is better than the first one.
I enjoyed both, but they're different. Like they're going for different things, I think.
Yeah.
And Terminator 2 did a much better job at certain aspects.
Well, Terminator 2 is an elaboration of something that already exists, whereas Terminator 1 had to create it from scratch.
I've watched. People are asking about like classic Bond films now. I think I've seen most of those. The Man with the Golden Gun is the one I've seen the least. But I remember someone jumping across a swamp on top of alligators for that one. So,
sounds about right.
The Man with the Golden Gun, that's the one with Christopher Lee, isn't it?
Yes.
So that was kind of his claim to fame, that I did play a Bond villain. But I would say when it comes to James Bond, it has to be Goldfinger, doesn't it?
Yes, I've seen Goldfinger.
Well, yes, but that is that.
That is the quintessential Bond film. Yes.
Also older than the 70s. So there you go. There's another one.
Let me see. Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
Brilliant. Absolutely beautiful.
Yes. Silence of the Lambs. Definitely seen that one.
Okay.
Yes, I watched all the Hannibal films. I enjoyed those. I came onto those because I watched the new series with Mads Mikkelsen and then moved my way back.
Did you given that you say you like Hannibal films, wasn't there one made before Silence of the Lambs in which was it Brian Cox? Was that the name?
The famous physicist, yeah.
You mean the Scottish actor?
Yes.
From Dundee.
He played that character before it then became giant in The Silence of the Lambs. And some people actually say that they think that he was more terrifying.
Oh, interesting. I haven't seen it now.
I'm struggling to remember what the name of the film was, but I remember one scene in particular with his latest victim comes. It's like a slope, and his latest victim comes rolling down on a wheel, tied to a wheelchair on fire.
Strong.
As they arrive to kind of see this thing go by, if you know what I mean. So yeah, interesting.
Is it Manhunter?
That might be it. Yes.
Let me see. The Godfather. No, I've not seen any of the Godfather films.
Again, I think that's one where you might want to sort of, even if you just drop part 2 and 3, just watch the first one. And I think you will get the sense of it. You will kind of see why people kind of enjoy that.
Dr. Strangelove. I couldn't get into that. I did try it once. Apocalypse Now. I don't know. Uncle Buck. I've never heard of.
That's another John Candy movie. So that refers to trains, planes, and automobiles.
You see, Young Frankenstein.
Very funny. That's a what were we saying? The comedian before? You said you've seen some of his films.
Mel Brooks.
Yes, Young Frankenstein.
Oh yes, I think I might have seen that one actually.
With Marty Feldman.
Where
Marty Feldman plays Igor, doesn't he?
Yeah.
and they make women sing. Yeah. Cool Runnings. Yes, I've seen Cool Runnings.
Another John Candy. Yes.
Now people are getting silly, like Wally. Have I seen Wally? It's like,
Actually,
yes.
I've seen Wally. I enjoyed that. I thought that was a very good film. Yes.
Let me see. Marcus says, "Have you seen Oh I Give Up?"
No.
No, yeah, he's giving up. So let's go and says, "Does that count as your safe word, Marcus?" I don't know what he's just responding. Have I seen? And people are saying yes. It's Manhunter you were referring to earlier. Have I seen any of the Rocky films? No. Have I
Watch
seen
the first one? That is very good. Rocky 1, the first
There's
one.
just
Is very good.
there's just people here going, I preferred Alien versus Predator.
Jesus.
I enjoyed Alien versus Predator, but only if you don't compare it to any of the source material. Full Metal Jacket, it remains on my list of things to watch, but I've never got round to it.
Yawn.
Let me see. True Lies, obviously, yes. Now people are talking about
Schwarzenegger films.
Schwarzenegger films, yes, Twins and
And
that
Jamie
sort of thing.
Lee Curtis stripping. Yeah.
Have I seen any classic slasher films? I've never really been into them. I've been more into like the body horror stuff. Like I enjoyed The Fly. I enjoyed
Actually,
The Thing. That sort of
very
thing.
nearly viral. They did a useful one once where they looked at that a bit, as in kind of how older horror films built tension.
Mm.
They would kind of you'd kind of be looking down an empty corridor with nothing much happening and just eerie music playing and perhaps the camera twisting a bit, and it kind of put you ill at ease. Whereas nowadays, as you say, it's more body horror. It's just basically somebody
I don't know.
jumping out of the dark and then stabbing and
No,
stabbing and stabbing and stabbing.
that's not what body horror is. But I agree that like it's all become rather formulaic. I mean,
Well, yes, but
maybe
what I mean is it's not jumping out of the dark. That's not what I'm trying to get
well,
at. It's more the kind of disemboweling of somebody.
Yes, it's less. It's more gore, less atmosphere.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, yes. Whereas you take things like in a region when the Texas Chainsaw Massacre came out, which is a film with no on-screen deaths that was banned for nearly a decade.
Well, I think that lady more than likely deserves the prize of being the ultimate scream queen, because I think it's her endless screaming that kind of makes that film, because she's always kind of wailing in horror, isn't she? No,
I don't know. Let me see. Oh, people like as I say, I don't really do possession films. Can you imagine my parents allowing me to watch possession films as a child, given that they were creationist fundamentalist Christians? Let's see. The Exorcist. No, I've not seen it. The animated Lord of the Rings. Yes, I have seen that. And yes, I know who Christopher Lee is. Yes, although I've not seen him in too much. Does Britisher like Mark Commode? Decent critic, but very left wing, says Panama Hat.
Like sort of most film critics, I get annoyed at the pretentiousness of them. That if something is a film made about unemployed dock workers filmed in black and white in post-war Warsaw or something like that, they all rave how wonderful it is and how it will more than likely win a prize at Cannes. But then you try and watch it, it's like watching paint dry. So I think to a certain extent, most of these film critics, and I would definitely include Kermode, need to kind of rediscover their inner populist, if you know what I mean, and try and find what is actually something that the people would want to watch, and kind of understand that watchability is also an element of quality.
Yes, absolutely. Sorry, Sit's going. I've missed a super chat from you saying the Pinchcliffe the Pinchcliffe Grand Prix, or Flaklipa Grand Prix. I presume that's a film from your country of origin.
Yeah, that doesn't ring any bells.
I've not seen that. No. I don't know. Like people, Rat Race with John Cleese. Yes, I've seen that.
Can I ask one? The Great Escape.
I've not seen it. I'll bet he saw The Passion of the Christ. No, I actually didn't, because my parents considered it to be an over-dramatization
Was a bit.
at the time, and
I mean,
I've never
the
picked it
Great
up afterwards.
Escape might be worth one catching up with once. Because
Well, you have to. What's funny is I've been in the Air Force, and like a number of the military-themed films, it always amuses me because people just people who've already seen them, who assume that everyone else has seen them, never put them on. So I like, you get references to things, and then I've not actually seen them, which is interesting. I know obviously The Whistle, because everyone knows
yes,
The Whistle.
precisely. You know, that's what I mean. There are certain things that kind of become part of the culture. Do you understand what I mean?
It's a mad, mad, mad world.
Yes, Spencer Tracy. That's a bit like the one you were just talking about before, with John Cleese.
Oh, okay, yeah. Fifth Element, seen it.
Not a bad film.
Not a bad film.
Nothing outstanding. I mean,
Children of the Corn. I don't know it.
no, doesn't ring a bell.
Really?
Children of the Corn. No, never heard of that.
Oh, I'm surprised.
Interesting. Do you want to give us a rundown of what it is, Toad?
I think 1950s horror B movie, I believe. So,
Well, fair enough. You know, I wanted this to be like a 10-minute section, and we've been doing it for 50 minutes. It's like for goodness sake.
it'd be a shorter section if you said what film.
Here's one for Tale Feature. It's got Michael Caine in it. Kidnapped.
No.
Where he plays a Scotsman.
Well, that's just cultural appropriation. I'm not watching that now.
It's that's definitely one you'll have to watch. So basically, Michael Caine playing a Scotsman in full kilt.
I'm triggered already.
Children of the Corn is 80s Stephen King adaptation of a...
Oh, maybe I'm thinking of something else.
So is that Time Bandits? I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it's quite a likable film, that. But again, I wouldn't say it was a masterpiece of any sorts. But it's
I've seen The Italian Job. I've seen the much more recent, like people saying,
no, not the recent
remake. No. I've moved on from The Italian Job. I've seen What We Do in the Shadows, which is something someone put up, which is one of the best horror comedies of the modern recently, which came out. It was a New Zealand indie film that went massive, and now has spawned a TV series, which is also well worth your time and sits on iPlayer at the moment. Let me see what else we got. People just plumbing the depths of my ignorance. It's like, yeah.
I'm saying it'd be a much shorter section if you just said what films you had seen.
Yeah. No,
the 12 films you've watched, yes.
The Three Amigos. I've seen The Three Amigos. That's the one with Steve Martin. Yeah. That one. The Man Who Would Be King.
Holy shit.
Very good film.
Not seen that.
Sean Connery and Michael Caine. Yes, they're basically, they end up somewhere in the backwoods of Afghanistan.
There is a film I do want to see, which was The Last King of Scotland. I need to watch that.
That's
pretty grim.
Yes, that Idi Amin, isn't it?
Yeah.
Pretty grim. The book's pretty grim as well.
Well, let's probably enjoy that, you know.
The chap who plays Idi Amin won an Oscar for that one.
12 Monkeys. I watched the first episode of the series that was produced on Netflix and immediately wanted to watch the film first because I was convinced that it would be better than any Netflix adaptation, and then maybe I'll come back to it. Yeah. Das Boot.
Das Boot. Not Boot, please. Boat.
Das Boot. No, not seen that one.
It's the greatest submarine thing ever.
It was all right.
Are there many submarine things to compare?
Oh, yes. Yeah, no, there are quite a few films set in submarines and whatever, where you know, obviously one tries to crank up the tension and whatever. Nothing can be quite as claustrophobic as a submarine. But when it comes to Das Boot, it's an outstanding piece of work. Yes. I believe at first it wasn't actually a film. It was, I believe it was a 2 or 3-parter that was screened on German television. And
yes,
then
it
one
was,
kind of cut it into a film.
My ex has seen the German version because she speaks fluent German, and she loved it. So I'm aware of its existence from that.
I remember the news showing pictures of German streets when the concluding part was being shown, and just Germany was deserted.
Let me see. Iron Sky. Yes, I saw 40 minutes of that, and I couldn't stand it any longer. Event Horizon. You can speak, Tailed Feature. You are on the chat. You are in the chat.
I triggered the chat as well.
Well, Event Horizon is kind of science fiction meets Hellraiser, isn't it?
Yes, and
Yeah,
it is. It does it it's really apart from the fact that you just love Lawrence Fishburne and it being himself because he can't play anyone else. And what's also funny is if you ever watch any Lawrence Fishburne films, is you can chart his weight gain over time, which is also hilarious because by the time he makes his switch to doing TV. And he's in, for instance, the new Hannibal series, although he's done other stuff than that. He's quite inflated. Harry Channel says Operation Petticoat is the best submarine movie.
Yes, that is a very fun film. Yes.
And Christian Verti says The Hunt for Red October or Children of the Corn. We mentioned Children of the Corn, no, but Hunt for Red October, yes, I saw that once many years ago. Can't remember much about it. Hunting for a submarine, right?
Well, it's based on a novel that was based on. It was obviously a fiction based on a true event, if you know what I mean. So
yeah,
there was a Russian submarine that went down in the Atlantic. So obviously, this writer was it Crichton? I'm not sure. Kind of took it upon himself to kind of build a yarn about what could have happened, and then from that they made the film.
Anyway, folks, I think you've had a root around in too much of my personal space now for a while, and hopefully this conversation is buried deep enough in the episode that anyone who listens to it tomorrow as they drive to work or something won't be too scarred by it. Thank you very much for joining me for Fake Accents this evening. I apologize to the chat. Like I try my best. I know a lot about some things, and this is just one of my massive cultural blind spots. But maybe we'll turn it into a piece of content or something for the channel where I try and watch one film a week or something, and we'll talk about it on next week's Fake Accents or something. But let me know what you think. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, obviously, if you haven't already. And thank you very much to my guests. Thank you very much for joining us from the deep north, Tailed Feature. Thanks for that.
Thank you for that.
And thank you very much, Britisher, for suffering with me this evening.
Well, thank you for that. And now go and watch some films.
Take care, everyone, and good night.
See you.